Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Constellation. You know what it is. You know what this show is. Come on, I don't got to explain it to you. We're here with Dustin and Brad. How are you guys doing?
Very good. I'm so excited to be on a Chris-hosted Constellation. This is the first time. Very excited.
Oh, really?
I think for me too.
Yeah, first time. So it feels good. We don't need a fucking Moriarty around here to run things. We've got it. You've got it. So just exciting, something new. I do have to tell you guys, I had an absolute pitiful lunch. Just
Oh, no.
so Holly and I do this thing where I don't know why, but we needed groceries probably 2 days ago, but we've just kind of been surviving on random shit. So I was going to make a sandwich, which I went to get the bread that I ate yesterday, and I pulled it out, mold on the side. I was like, good. Good. Ate that yesterday. No problem yesterday. Maybe not. So I had Greek yogurt, 2-day-old cornbread, and coffee. So I am set. I am absolutely set. I think we're going to try to get groceries tonight, but I'm very well. And happy to be here with Brad, too. What's up, dude?
Yeah. Doing good. You're like eating prison food or something for lunch.
I know, dude. Well, my plan was to make a peanut butter sandwich. And I was like, okay, that's good. That's reasonable enough. But then, the moldy bread, which it was fine yesterday. I swear. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I didn't see it. Now, my dad would have been like, oh, just pick that part off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's
dad move.
Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. So, but I'm subsisting. I'm surviving for now.
Yeah.
We'll see by the end of this episode.
You're like,
you might be dead
the diet
by the end of the episode.
Yeah. You have the diet of like someone on the Mayflower coming over here. Something, just old moldy bread.
Yeah.
Just like
The cornbread wasn't, cornbread was absolutely delicious. 10 out of 10. Having that just on its own, though, not good.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to have these struggle meals to survive. That'd be a great topic. Struggle meals.
Struggle meals is a great...
Struggle meals.
I mean,
yeah.
dude, first of all, the concept of a Mayflower diet is amazing. I love that
magazine, the Mayflower diet.
The Mayflower diet. It's grains and air. It's amazing.
Yeah.
No, like I don't know. Sometimes you're at the end of that grocery run, or like the end of like your stockpile, and you're like, I've definitely been in this situation before, where it's just like, all right, I could go get more, but then I know what is remaining will look so much more unenticing,
right,
when I have new things. So like you just end up in a weird. So it's like I guess I'll have milkless cereal and a strip of bacon, for breakfast, and it's just like, man, these are dire times. But it is what it is.
We
Brad,
survived nonetheless.
Brad, how are you doing?
Good. I just woke up not too long ago. I meant to get up earlier, but just couldn't do it. I was too comfortable, man.
It happens, man. Like, well, we for those of you who are unfamiliar, we record this show at I think it's 1 p.m. Eastern, right?
Yeah.
So it's 10 a.m. for me and Brad. So it's a lot earlier. Some people in Sacred would be like, why is Chris so off at the beginning? Because I wake up I wake up around that time. Like, I've been waking up earlier lately, but it's difficult generally to wake up early for me. Like, this is a really unusual period in time. But
just before you start writing comments, we know this is not that early, okay? Spare us. We know you guys get up at 5 a.m.
I was up at 1 a.m. ready for work. It's like,
I woke up at 7 p.m. today to get ready for my 4 a.m. shift at the deli factory or wherever.
Hey, and God bless those people. We need them.
God bless them.
But
for sure, yeah.
We understand. We get it.
Couldn't do it.
We love.
I had to wake up. I had to wake up at. Well, I had my first job at Sears. I woke up around like. I had to wake up at like I think 5 a.m. for a 6 a.m. shift at Sears. Like, and that was every shift that I had was like 6 a.m. With the I had like maybe one day a week that was like maybe 11 to 5 or some weird time, but I don't miss that at all. So more power to you. Power to the players out there.
Power to the players.
Yeah, power to the players
who are getting up at the crack of dawn. Well, guys, it's good to be here with you today. We're doing an episode of Constellation. We've got a couple of topics. I want to start off mine because I think I have the least to say about this. I'm just like baffled by it because it appeared out of nowhere. I'm going to start off with dog shows. And so I don't know if you guys have experienced this. I went over to a friend of mine's house for like this, like for a birthday thing that they threw for me. I didn't realize that that's what it was going to be. I thought once I cclear my birthday, I'm safe from like surprise things. Turns out that's not the case. I appreciate them, but you know. I don't like being the center. I don't like being sang at, you know? I hate it.
Okay, Larry David, right here.
No, it's weird. It's an awkward experience to be sang
that
at.
Is 100% an SNL bit or Larry David.
It is. Do you like that experience of the happy birthday, like people singing happy birthday to you?
Well, I don't. It doesn't happen often, Chris, so I'm not really sure. Like at a restaurant, no. I guess singing the part is kind of cringe. When people are singing at you, it's like, all right, we're not 5, but it's okay. Yeah, I guess I appreciate the gesture, but the surprise part, that's cool.
No, yeah, I appreciate like, oh, hey, I appreciate a get together with a loose understanding in the background that like, okay, maybe it could be that I'm the reason why this is happening. Maybe.
Okay.
I like it to be more vague, but like the whole like you're sitting there and you're being sang at, I don't like that experience.
Yeah, you're being serenaded at like by a bard or something.
It's like JFK and Marilyn Monroe. It's just like is this going somewhere? Like I don't know. I don't exactly like where the undertones of this. But so I was at a friend's house and they had YouTube on their TV. Like it's their entirely separate account, right? It's not my account. And they have on their recommended the same exact random out of place dog show. It was like an hour and a half dog show from like, I don't know, overseas. I don't know, somewhere in, I don't know, probably somewhere in Locke's territory. I have no idea. Yeah. That's what it felt like. And it was on my recommended. It was on his recommended. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this dog show showing up over there? So out of curiosity, we just like put it on and watched a little bit of it. It's literally just walking a normal ass looking dog around in a circle, showing its teeth to the camera, and some guy's like, yeah, that's a dog.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of, it really stuck with me the whole week. Like this happened on like Saturday and I've been thinking about it ever since because I'm just confused at like what the premise is, what the point is, who would attend this? Like who would pay for a seat at one of these dog shows where they're not even getting a good view? You know, they're like, they got to look at it on a monitor. What is going on with the dog show? And what is your, if you have any experience or any like insight into this at all, which I doubt, but like, I'm so curious. Dustin, are you seeing that? Did you look it up by curiosity?
Well, it's funny you brought this up because when Holly and I were flying back from Japan, we flew into Washington, D.C., and then we took another plane back to Pittsburgh. And on that small plane, it was one of those ones that has like some kind of like live TV on it that you can watch when it's taking off and whatever. And you have to pay for it, but we didn't do that. But my arm accidentally hit it, and on came a dog show on the plane. And Holly's like, awesome. Oh, I'm going to check this out. It's the Westminster Dog Show. So it's European, which makes it even more ridiculous, right? So yeah, it was pretty much what you described. Now, it's interesting because I don't know if there's like multiple types of dog shows because I've seen the ones where they just kind of parade them around, check their teeth or whatever. There are some cool ones where there's like showing how smart a dog is. Like it can do this obstacle course. They've somehow taught them how to speak with buttons now. I've seen, I don't know if that's part of the show, but I've seen that. And that's pretty interesting, and it's especially interesting as a dog owner, where my dog is not smart in the slightest at all. There's like no thoughts going on up there at all. She has no idea what's going on. She stands around with a blank stare. So it's interesting to see how people are able to train dogs, and they actually can be quite smart. Which is it. If you think about the dogs that aren't smart, do they all have the capability, or are they just living in this hollow-headed like hellhole where they can barely think? It's a dangerous reality.
It is. It's a little scary. I don't know. Like, I think generally, I think that capability is nascent in all dogs. It's just sitting there, at least from a certain point. I think like maybe like what's that? Because you can't train a dog when they're like 17 to like do a crazy like obstacle course or whatever. But I think that early on, I think you can do it. I just think so few people have a need or desire to do that. Like I know from my experience, I never once wanted to teach my dog how to do anything because all it needed to do was just kind of be there. You know, like it's not gonna. I'm not gonna train this thing to get my mail for me or you know, because first of all, that's work on my part. I already got enough going on. I'm not gonna train a fucking dog. But I've seen those dog shows where they do the obstacle, and like, look, I still wouldn't attend one of those things, but at least I get the curiosity of like, all right, I'll watch a clip of a dog like doing a somersault through a hoop or whatever. Like, okay, cool, that's neat. But so the dog show that I'm thinking of, by the way, is called the National Dog Show 2024 Toy Group. Was the one that showed up for me.
So that's a real small dog, right?
Yeah, they're just the small. Yeah, they're the small dogs, and it's literally it showed up on my record. It's 653,000 views 12 days ago. A lot of people tuning in for this, you know, and I just don't understand.
Now,
I'm just bewildered by it.
Chris, when I was looking up the videos, I found this. I'm sending it through in the chat. I can't put it on the episode because I don't want to get copyright striked. This is a little more interesting. This is the dog diving national championship that has these dogs straight up launching themselves into a pool. I actually think this is pretty great.
Yo, this is sick. This is perfect. This is the kind of dog show I would go to. Yeah, you know. Dogs launching themselves off at like Mach 10 into a giant pool of water. This is sick.
Yeah,
even just the setup of it, dude. Even the setup of it is so much better. Like it's out in the daytime. You can tell people are like chilling. Like there's something about the toy, like the dog show thing that I saw where it was in like a dimly lit auditorium. You know, there's like an air of like it's almost like golf. There's like it's golf coded. Where there's like it's very subtle. The people who are announcing it, they're so, and here's the next dog. It's very small. Look at it, and it's like it's very like buttoned up. This is high octane in comparison. This is awesome.
Not to get us off topic, but a little bit.
No, please.
It is funny because people make competitions out of anything, and YouTube is a great way to find these. Maybe Chris, we talked about this on the show. Holly and I discovered this a few months ago. It's called, I think it's boxcar racing, which is basically you get all these people, like people make different teams, like it'll be like local businesses or whatever. And they make like the absolute shittiest vehicle that you can think of. It's basically like a Flintstones car, right? And then they fly down hills at the fastest speed possible. They always crash. They sometimes explode into a million pieces. And yeah, this boxcar racing, it's very big over in Europe. Of course, it's always European.
This is awesome. I will say, like, so I'm scrolling through. I looked up boxcar racing, and I'm scrolling through, and they're all pretty like. This is like something like Red Bull has uploaded some of these. It's like 6.6 million views.
Yeah,
there's one, the highest viewed one that I see. I'm not happy about it because it's 9.8 million views. It says best of Red Bull soapbox race, but the thumbnail is a car that is a giant foot.
Ew.
So I don't love the correlation of that being the thumbnail and also having the highest views.
Yeah, wait, here, I'll put this.
Don't love that.
This is one that's just a compilation of all the crashes, and you'll even see just in the first 20 seconds the absolute mayhem going on with these vehicles.
Oh my God.
Surely someone's died. doing
Yeah,
like,
right.
This looks like a broken neck.
Yeah,
This
someone's
doesn't-
been paralyzed.
This
For
does
sure.
not look even slightly safe, and I love it. See, this is great. No, this is so much. Everything that I'm seeing right now is so much more enticing to me than a dog show.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Watching humans fall over is funny no matter what. Always.
That is true. There is something about just the creativity, like just being like, yeah, I'm gonna make a barrel into a car, or like, yeah, I'm gonna make a foot into a car. Yeah, I'm gonna make this guy at 16 minutes in is driving like he's dressed like a fucking Templar, and he's like driving a fake castle.
Oh yeah. He's literally it's an entire, well, not an entire castle, but it is a castle car.
That's awesome. I love it.
It's just like Mario Kart cars or something, or Crash Team Racing cars. They're all absurd. I like it a lot. Let's do this. Where is this?
We should have an LSM boxcar racing event.
Exactly.
Where we all
I always
build
think-
I'm not building a car.
There's
We'll put
always
Hogan there.
there's always parades downtown in Butler, and I always thought, what if we did a Last Stand float for a parade? Like, imagine like us waving on it, like we could project the podcast on it. Could be something.
What would that float look like, do you think? At this, like, because usually it's thematic, right? Like, what kind of object could we be like?
Standing
Could we
on?
be riding on? Like, I feel like I can't even. I guess a giant PlayStation, right? Well, no, that would be Sacred Symbols. It would have to be
Right.
an LSM thing.
Yeah. You could do like giant logos. It's kind of boring though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another potential topic: Last Stand float ideas, and then we do it.
No,
Yeah.
Get everybody
it's
to
really
Butler
easy.
though.
It's
Unlikely.
famously easy to build a float. You know.
It's just like, what is the company meme or whatever? What is the
I
meme that
don't know.
represents the entire company? I don't know. Like autism awareness or something like that, I guess, for the float.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah,
probably.
We'll partner with Autism Speaks or whatever. one of those controversial autism companies.
They produce the main. Stock price is way up.
Yes, the shareholders of Autism Speaks are just absolutely enthralled with how things are going. I think things are looking
Christian
up.
thing or something. I don't know.
Oh god, I don't even want to think. Dude, somebody
Wait,
didn't
what's going
edit.
on? Okay, hold on. Like, what did he really get a girl pregnant? Is this really happening?
It's
You guys are Christorians, so you have to let me know.
I'm somewhat of a retired Christorian, I will say. Like I keep getting
Okay.
pulled back in by the sands of time, but I think I've seen conflicting reports. Right, I've seen people talk about how like, okay, this was a false alarm. I've seen the alternative. I really don't know. I don't know what's true or not anymore. All I know
Dustin?
is when I first saw it, I screamed. And I talked about it on Snark Tank, and somebody edited the clips together, but they edited my scream in front of. They superimposed my scream over oh man, should I spoil it? Breaking Bad's old. You should have seen Breaking Bad by now if you care about Breaking Bad. But like they superimposed it over the scene of Gus screaming as he explodes, and it works really well.
Brad, but
Listen, you're silent. Tell me what's going
Oh,
on. I
what's
know
going
you're
on?
keeping tabs.
here's the thing, Chris Chan, not Chris Raygun, but Chris is a notorious liar. He claimed to have sex with his mom, which eventually came out that it seemingly he didn't, being that he was let out of prison. And just from his history, he's a known liar. So I would suspect that he is lying, talking about the possibility of a future child. Maybe not. I'm not convinced though for now. But maybe that's just copium, just praying that something like this isn't the truth. But I don't know. At least we've got him out of the country.
Yeah,
You know, he's over in Finland. It's
Wait,
Finland's
he is?
problem now. I'm pretty sure it's Finland.
is?
Yeah.
yeah. He's in Finland. What an interesting place to go, man. That is. If I were to have guessed where Chris Chan would vanish to, Finland is probably. I'm not even exaggerating. Probably like one of the last guesses that I would have had. Would have guessed like Japan pretty immediately. That would have been obvious. Maybe Europe. But like Finland specifically is like Finland. I feel like we don't think a lot about Finland. Generally, like I feel like the only Finnish thing that I think about is Remedy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alan Wake and Sam Lake and those guys. But that's about it. Like I don't know much about Finland. I don't know anything about it. So to hear that they imported Christian from the US is kind of that's historical, I think. And worth keeping an eye on.
Oh, Brad, you're muted.
Oh, Brad, you're muted.
God damn it. I just found a picture of him in Finland, though, on Reddit. But it's marked as not safe for work content. And he had to mark it. And it's just a picture of someone walking. That's it. I like how Christian is that vile and dangerous. He's marked for not safe for work. It's so good.
Oh my God. That he would be censored on the news as an entity is pretty nice. I love that.
Yeah, that rules.
But
you gotta be careful with Reddit and a blurred image. Like sometimes you're like, oh, you know what? I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll go for it. And then you see something that you'll never forget for the rest of your life, and you're like, didn't need to see that person dying.
Yeah. That's what Twitter's become for me now. It's like I can't. It's crazy out there. But yeah, so I don't know, man. Dog shows are weird. I want to say this too. This is kind of an extrapolation from this. I didn't necessarily intend on getting into this, but I do think it's like tangential enough, and it kind of speaks to a similar kind of confusion point for me. As I'm sitting there and we're watching the dog show, I'm also thinking about like beauty pageants and that kind of thing as well, right? And specifically, you guys remember that show, Honey Boo Boo?
Oh,
I've heard of it.
The
Like
mom that looked like a
those.
thumb or something.
Yeah. Like the whole child beauty pageant. Like all these things came to mind when I was watching these dog shows, because I'm sitting there watching something that I can't fathom. I can't fathom there being an audience for. I don't understand what the purpose is. I don't understand like what the. It's not like E3. You know what I mean? Where they're gonna unveil a new dog. You know what I mean?
Well, they
like
could.
I could see maybe tuning into that. It's like, oh, they're gonna invent a new dog. I wonder what the new dog's gonna be. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be curious enough to check that out. At the very least, like look for the clip. You know, but it's this. They're never going to have a new dog at a dog show. It's always going to be like, oh, here's a mini poodle. You remember this from the last 1,000 years. Here's a Doberman. Yeah, you remember these, tried and true. So I guess I just really want somebody in the I brought this up specifically so somebody in the audience could maybe explain this to me. I want to read the comments of this episode. Are any of you dog show aficionados? Is there a background like meta that I need to be aware of? Let me know, because I am curious. Not as a fan, but as an observer.
Chris, you bring up the idea of a concept of a new dog. Like, we're not going to have a new type of dog. This actually reminds, I had a conversation with Holly a week or two ago, and I was like, I think we need less breeds of dogs. And I think we need to, we don't need to genocide certain breeds of dogs, but we just need to stop breeding them. You know, I think I saw a video about pugs, and they're like, yeah, basically we've bred them to the point where their face is completely crushed so far into their fucking skull they can barely breathe, and everyone looks at them and is like, oh, it's so cute how it's honking around and it snores. I'm like, dude, that thing can't. He suffered. His body was bred to suffer. So that's why I'm like, I know people love pugs and other breeds of dogs. Shirley Frisk is not natural, and I get that, but some of these dogs, I'm like, I feel bad that that they've been genetically designed for their cuteness, to the point where their well-being is so bad from just existing.
Yeah, it's they can get. I only ever heard this. I don't know if this is true, but is it true that like pugs can get so like if pugs live for like a lot longer than they're anticipated to live, like their eyes can fall out? Like I've heard that before.
Oh, that's a good question.
Fall out? I don't know. That sounds like a wives' tale or something.
It does, but it doesn't sound beyond impossible. You know what I mean? It's right on the cusp of like I could believe that. I guess
it's real.
Like, kind of
real
already.
Pugs and other. Oh, this is a big word. Brachycephal. whatever their breed is, have the added risk of an eye popping out when they're being overly restrained.
Oh, restrained. Okay.
It's true. A pug can struggle so much when being held tight, such for a toenail trim, that their eye will pop out.
Oh my God.
I'm not clicking the image search on this one.
We don't need to see those.
We don't need that.
Fuck me, dude. Yeah, it's really, I often think about, well, not often, that makes me sound insane, but I've thought about this at least a couple of times this year, where like, do you think that if your consciousness was transported into the body of a pug, do you think that you could handle the pain of that?
This is like that game, I have no mouth, but I must scream. You're like, you're forever tormented to live as a pug. At least you're loved, hopefully, by somebody, taken care of. But it just constantly feels like you're suffocating.
Yeah, like I that must be such a, but that's all they know too. So that's like their baseline. So it probably isn't even pain to them. It's probably just like, yeah, this is what existence is. I can't imagine that. There are definitely certain dogs where I'm just like, I look at them and I just think, man, what an affront. And it's so sad. Maybe we should stop breeding some of these. Like for sure. I think pugs, definitely. Their faces are too crushed in. They're clearly having a hard time. Like if you listen to a sleeping pug, they're not resting well.
No, they're not. Well, it's like you look at a dog and you're just like, you wouldn't survive in the wild. There's no chance. You'd be hawk food in an instant. Like a little pug, see ya. No question.
Yeah. That's what we always say to Frisk, is that she would never, she doesn't know, like I was saying earlier, anything. But dude, dachshunds have an inherited debuff, I guess, of their breed, that because they're so long, their backs, it's like it'll eventually, you can see like little dachshunds that have, it's almost like a doggy wheelchair where they have like wheels in the back because they can't. Luckily, Frisk, the best way to get a dachshund is to have them be crossbred with another breed. So like our vet was like, oh, Frisk, because she's crossbred, with what is it? It's slipping my mind. She's crossbred with another breed, so she won't have the back problems, most likely.
Oh, good.
But
it's like breeding chocobos in Final Fantasy to get the best stats or something out of your dog. It's crazy, man. You get like those racial buffs or debuffs. Yeah. You gotta be real careful.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think a dog like that knows it's handicapped?
I don't
Do you think it has a concept? Yeah, it probably doesn't, right? It's probably just thinking,
you know what, Chris? Maybe if it was like a working dog on a farm or something for a long time, then it has to retire or something like that. And some dogs love to work. Like they just love to do that. So, and it can't work. It has like a crisis probably.
He's having a midlife crisis. Like, I can't go. I can't lift as heavy as I used to.
Can't jump
What
like
good
I
am
used
I?
to.
It is. So I oddly know a lot about police dogs because at my old job, we would film like this summer police camp for kids. And so they would bring in the police dogs and give them like a presentation. Police dogs, they like can't let them live in the house with them because they get lazy. Where if you let them sleep like on the couch and stuff, they'll be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go bite people. I don't want to sniff for drugs. I just want to sit inside and, chill. So dogs, they can get lazy, of course, even working dogs, but
just burnouts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I wanted to bring this up because it was just weird and I kept seeing it. I don't think I would have brought it up if I didn't see it just pop up on somebody else's recommended. That to me was the weirdest part of it. It's just like, why is this catching everyone's algorithm? Why is this being pushed? Is there like a big like campaign from like, is Big Dog really trying to like push dog shows on the moment? I don't really get it. It was weird. But I'm satisfied. It's a very whatever. I also just had no idea what to talk about today, to be honest with you. So, but there's two here. I don't know which order I think I want to go with. I want to go with Dustin's topic next. I love this one. So take it away.
Sure. So my topic is I wrote out some notes to make sure I thought of a lot of different ways to cover this. So my topic is wasting money. And I was joking with Gene in our staff Discord that sometimes when I can't think of a topic, I'll go and look at my old topics and either try to do a different spin on it or the opposite or something. And so a while back, I think it was last year, I did the topic of frugality, all about saving money, trying to get value. So I wanted to talk to you guys about wasting money. And there's a couple different angles of this because I was thinking about times that I've spent money and then later regretted it because it was like, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or the thing I bought broke, or it just wasn't worth it. But then I also thought of things that you waste money on that you know is a waste of money, but choose to anyway. And then last, I want to talk about ways that other people waste money that annoy you deeply. So I'll start here. I'll kick us off and then we can kind of go through these with things that I regret wasting money on. And I just thought of two random examples. Chris, I think you know one of these, but it has stuck with me for so long. In Butler, in the summertime, maybe not anymore, but they used to do an Italian festival downtown. And so this was always an opportunity to go eat some food, check out an Earth, Wind, and Fire cover band, very Italian, and, just get out of the house for a little bit. So a few years ago, I went down and the lines for all the food were very, very long. And I specifically wanted a meatball sandwich, hoagie, and I wanted cheese sticks. And so I found a place that had both. And I saw in their window thing what they had. And I was like, okay, that looks decent. I'm going to go for that. Wait in line. And I ask for the cheese sticks and I ask for the sandwich. And so the guy's putting it together. And then I see him go and he's got the meatballs in there and they look all right. He goes and instead of sprinkling mozzarella cheese on it, he goes and gets liquid cheese, like yellow nacho cheese, pours it on the sandwich. Now, any normal person would have said no. I'm not eating that. But I'm me. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. So I'm like, well, okay. And then he gets fries on the side with it. But then I realize as he's getting the cheese sticks ready that was also considered a meal. So that got its own fries as well. And then he tells me the price is $30 for my single meal here. And it was just absolutely horrendous. Nacho cheese on a meatball sub is exactly as bad as you think of it. The cheese sticks, they were clearly not recently made because they weren't. It was just almost like a breaded cheese stick at that point. But also me being me, I was like, dude, I spent $30 on this. I'm eating as much of it as possible. Really tainted the experience. And since then, I have not gone back to the Italian festival. The other one, this was kind of recent, is I went to Hell's Kitchen in DC with my parents, Holly, and we invited Gene along. And I should have known better, but at the beginning they say, oh, would you like tap or sparkling water? I thought, oh, we'll get the sparkling water, knowing that it probably would be an upcharge, but how much can it be? Sparkling water. When the bill came, it was $18 for the table water. And I was like, dude, come on, Gordon. What are we doing here? Charging $18. Now, it's my first time at a more fine dining restaurant. I should have known better. But so let's start with this. Brad, what's some things that you wasted money on that afterwards you were pissed off about?
Growing up, or I would say 21 plus with my friends, going to Vegas. Just wasting money at a casino. Now, I don't even gamble really at all. I've seen people lose a lot of money and I've seen people win a lot of money, but I don't want any part of that. My luck is very bad, I feel like, in gambling. I mean, even I'll spend $20, $30, $40, and I lose it like that or something. I'm just like, fuck, I could have gotten dinner or lunch with that or something. So losing gambling immediately is always bad, or losing money from gambling. Just random bullshit like at a store. Like, look at this, just a little Gundam. I saw that. I'm like, I really don't need this. It's a fucking waste of money, but I'm gonna get it anyways. I don't know. It's just weird, dumb shit like that. And of course, restaurants. Chris, the thing that pisses me off about LA the most, I think, is paying to park everywhere. Like for anything. It's like, what am I fucking paying taxes for? Why I gotta pay to park here or some shit like that? I'm gonna spend money at your establishment anyways. They just charge you $20 or something. Like you go to the Grove or some shit like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Or you got to get validation and they still charge you after validation. I feel like a chump anytime I have to do that.
Yeah, I've somehow avoided all of that because I've only had my car in LA for like a little bit before I brought it back to New York, because where my parents live in New York, it's very separate from the city where there's no Uber. It's like upstate. And so I'm like, a car's more useful up there than it is here technically. So I've somehow managed to avoid that parking situation. But I feel the same way. Like when I had my car, I was like, I'm not driving in LA.
No.
Because I'm going to have to park. And like, it's not even necessarily like paying for parking that bothers me. It's the fact that like, I'm going to have to, I'm going to get to the place. And in my mind, I'm already here, right? Like mentally, I've reached the destination. And now I got to circle the block and look for a space, or I have to go into a garage and I have to go up 3 fucking levels and then pay. It's a whole fucking, it's so unenticing to me that I never drove anywhere like deep into LA for that reason. I would always either get a ride or I would walk to the place that I would need to go to.
Yeah, you don't have much of a choice in LA compared to other cities. Yeah. Like New York, of course, you can take the subway around. LA is you're just kind of like,
you need a car.
They're like, all right, you're fucked. That's just the way it is. And everyone just kind of acknowledges it, and it is what it is, I guess.
Brad, so parking in Pittsburgh isn't too bad, except for when it comes to events. That's where they'll really get you. I think 2 summers ago, a listener actually reached out to me because they had an extra ticket to see Metallica at the baseball park. And I was like, sweet, I'm definitely in for that. So I drove down and I wasn't planning about parking. So I thought I'm going to try to park maybe half a mile away and just walk in and save some money. I couldn't find, all of them were full. So I was like, whatever the next one I can find, I'm going to. And I pull in $70 to park for the show. And I was getting the ticket for free. So I was like, well, it's fine because I'm still like in the clear for this. But I was like, dude, this is extortion just for, the ability to just park somewhere. Even I had to walk, dude. I think I had to walk more than half a mile at that point, but it's insane.
That's egregious.
$70?
$70, dude.
Lord, dude. I remember I went to Universal. Chris, you might know this as well. Both of you guys might know the Harry Potter world or whatever. Yeah. Everyone's like, you gotta get butterbeer. You gotta try it. Got it. Took one sip. Immediately hated it. And I was like, well, there goes $10 immediately. Just down the drain.
Sucks. That's the worst.
Yeah, you're just like, fuck.
I remember I had it. I know I had it a long ass time ago, but I had it again kind of recently because I went to that Halloween Horror Nights thing. And I was like, oh yeah, I do like this. Like butterbeer is kind of cool. Like I'm into it. But it's
also to like it.
Yeah, that's fucking unfortunate.
Now, Brad, when you got it, because I've heard there's like different tiers. I'm pretty sure the kind I got was just cream soda that they put some kind of whipped cream on top. And that was I was like, dude, this I could make this at home with something. But was it carbonated?
I think so.
Oh yeah, it's you took one sip. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know the butterbeer tier list that they have at Universal. I'm not really sure about all that, but I just kind of got whatever was in that area, the Hogsmeade area. So I don't know.
Right.
I was just like,
the one I had was deeply alcoholic. So like I think it was.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever like go to a restaurant or something? Like let's say you go to IHOP, you spend money at IHOP, and you leave, and you just feel like shit right away.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
And you're just like, well, I just paid to feel like shit, so that's all. That's cool.
I did that last week, dude. I think I told you about that because the new Popeyes opened.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
the Popeyes.
I
I didn't
got-
know you feel like shit after though.
I got a 3-piece meal with 2 sides, and I was like, you know what? Everyone says the chicken sandwich is good. I'm going to get that as well. I ate all of it. I ate the whole thing. And I just was sitting on the couch, and I do this often. I'm like, why do I do this to myself?
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm in physical pain now.
Yeah,
But I don't know, worth it? Maybe.
maybe. I don't know. Like, you ever gone to like a nightclub or some shit, and you have to buy expensive drinks or something like that, or it's required, or like a comedy show?
Oh yeah,
I just feel like I'm
one
getting
drink minimum or
Fucked
whatever.
over on those things. They always suck. The drinks are never good.
Yeah,
It's like, God.
that's the one thing that like annoyed me. Coming out here, it's like, oh, you got to pay $20 to get in, just to get in.
Yeah.
The fuck
Get in.
What get in? What? This is a dive.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's insane.
Yeah. All that stuff's a waste of money. Definitely.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, you had a couple of different tiers that you kind of segmented into it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so which ones? What were they again?
So the one we were starting out with, things that you wasted money on that you deeply regretted later.
Oh man, you know what? I feel like the answer to that one's always food. It's
Yeah.
always food because like that's a situation where you're hungry, you know, like you're really excited to get something that you hope is good, and then it's just like everything about it is wrong, or it just you ever get a Chipotle it's almost like going to Chipotle or ordering Chipotle, and you can just tell the second you bite in where it's like, damn, this was like the last bit of every single one of those bins. Like the last bit of beans, like the last bit of rice, like the last bit of chicken. All of it was just like the scraps. But then other times you get like you go and you just hit all 7s. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh fuck, it's like they just put out a fresh bowl, like a fresh thing of all of these, and now I'm gonna have a great fucking experience. I feel like every time I've ever regretted spending money on anything, it's always been food. Like it's never been like some weird item or dude, this year specifically has been a weird waste money year for me, like uncharacteristically, because I don't normally go out and buy like weird fucking things. But it just so happened that this year there were a lot of weird things that like caught my interest. What did we do the New York show this year, Dustin?
Yeah,
was
we
that
did.
this year?
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel like an eternity ago, by the way? But so that was this year. I bought like a $110 fucking Jamiroquai statue.
He was 110?
I don't remember. It felt like that. I don't
my
remember
God.
exactly the price, but it was like it felt egregious. But I was like, you know what?
It was. That store
this
was
is,
that was a tourist trap spot for sure.
For
It was Times
sure.
Square.
Yeah. But it was, you know, I'm
cool,
glad
though.
I have him set up. I have him set up on my desk.
I know, dude.
He's in that pose.
I love that when I saw you buying Jamiroquai.
I couldn't, guys. He was like on display in between like Beast Mode Gohan and like Luffy.
Yeah,
And then there's
he didn't
just
belong there.
Jamiroquai. He so clearly didn't belong there. It was insane. I had to buy him. So I got that earlier this year, and then they put out that Green Goblin helmet thing for like No Way Home, and I was like, that's sick. I gotta get that. And then they also had it was Halo 2's 20th anniversary this year, and so they put out like this statue that was like I think the first promotional art of Halo 2 that ever existed. It was like a statue of that, and I was like, well, fuck, you know, I this was the year. Like I don't normally like. I think years have gone by where I haven't spent money on any of that shit because I generally don't care. But this for whatever reason was one of those years where I was just like, damn, there's a lot of cool frivolous shit that I want.
Yeah.
And I'll just do it. The way I figured it was like I didn't do it for the last 4 years. If I limit myself to 3 this year, I'll even out. in some cosmic sort of way. But even those, like, I don't regret any of those purchases. Even if like the Halo 2 statue kind of came and I thought it was cool, but like it's connected to like a light because like the explosion has like a light in it, but the cord is really short. So I had to like, that was kind of annoying. And I was like, oh man, I have to figure this out. But I don't regret it because it's just like, oh, these are cool. I like having these things. I like looking at them. But man, a bad meal, because you're not going to get another one. You know what I mean? Like, you're done eating. So like, that's just like that experience completely fucking ruined. It like taints the rest of the day. God forbid you have a bad breakfast at like, because then it's just like, that takes, by the time dinner starts or by like dinner time, you're maybe coming out of it, of the disappointment of that experience. So I really do think it's always been food, especially if I think the worst thing is like going on a date and you're going out. It's like specifically like a date night and you're like, okay, let's go to this restaurant. It's like really nice. I know this is going to be like a little bit of sticker shock, but like whatever, it's worth it. Cool. It's experience all that stuff. Dress up, go out, have a nice time. And the food just sucks. You know? Or it's just like you're just like, man, I could have cooked better than this. Like sincerely for like maybe $30. And had leftovers for days. And here I am dressed up in a suit eating like the most mild fucking steak I've ever had in my life, feeling like an absolute fucking clown. That's the worst. I'm really sensitive for food stuff, I think. That's where I notice it the most, where I feel like, I wasted so much money on this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you go out drinking or something and you're just hungover as fuck or something the next day. And you're just like, well, I just paid to be miserable for an entire day.
You paid to hurt yourself. I figured out exactly. I figured out how to get through that. Like Pedialyte's been a savior for that stuff. When I used to drink a lot, like I had Pedialyte in my fridge all the time, and it was like a lifesaver because you'd chug that stuff and then you'd wake up and you'd be perfectly fine, no matter how hard you went. And it was like, this is a cheat code. But now I'm 31 and I don't really do that anymore anyway. So
yeah, it just gets harder as you get older.
It's a complete waste.
This is a good segue for me to talk about something I actively waste money on, probably on a weekly basis. Card. And I don't regret it, you know? So, and that's where the weird balance is, kind of what you were saying, Chris, where there's things that you buy that you're like, I know this is a waste of money, but I don't care. Because is it a waste of money if you find value in it to some degree? If it brings you some level of happiness, then sure. So I've showed a few different times on this show my One Piece card collection here. This is all the good stuff I have, right? Which isn't even that good. The most expensive card that I've gotten is $90, $100, right? So this is cool. This is like the good stuff. Well, the thing about this collection is you don't see is that there's a bunch of other stuff. So here's some stuff that's been sitting on my desk ready to be organized and put into the bulk collection. So I went around my house because what I do is I'll go to Target to buy some random stuff and then I'll pick up 2 or 3 packs that are around $4.50 each. So I'll open them, immediately be disappointed, say I shouldn't do this, and then the next time I go to Target, inevitably, I will do it again. So what I did was I went around my downstairs and found all of the small piles that I had in different locations from this different experience. And this was what I found here was this. This was just the over the last, I don't know, few months, just random stuff that I found. But this is where the larger problem is. This is the bulk collection.
Oh my God.
All of these are filled with cards. All of them. Just completely filled. We can just take out one random one here. Here's a... and they are just completely filled with cards. So this is something I keep doing. I keep buying for the chase because I don't even play this game. I have played it, but no one plays it locally where I am. So I could drive an hour and start playing. I've built some decks. I've played on the online simulator, but I just have this addiction to the chase of getting cool cards. I've bought a few boxes of booster packs, I've bought 2 boxes, and they were each for like $100. And out of both of those, nothing. So that's my bad addiction. Brad, you were talking about gambling earlier. This is just gambling. That's all it is gambling. Only when you win, you get a cool piece of paper at the end that might be worth money that I would never sell. So, Brad, I know you mentioned your Gundam figure, but I'm trying to remember if were you ever into like Pokemon cards or something that's like you actively.
Yeah. I used to have a lot of cards and stuff like that. Oh, Pokemon cards for sure when they came out, especially when they first came out here. Holy moly. I thankfully sold them for money at least, so I got something about it in the end.
Right.
Yeah, it's really easy, Dustin, to get caught up in the chase of that kind of stuff. You can't stop, man. It's an addiction. I did it with like magic cards, like superhero cards. It's a dangerous game. When we elevate it for you, Dustin, let's get even filthier.
Sure. Yeah.
Getting like cards in Hearthstone or something like that. A digital card game, a card you can't even physically touch. Think about all the money you spent, even on games and microtransactions. Some of them may be worth it, like Goku in Fortnite.
Sure.
Don't regret it for a second. But you buy like a dumb thing like Obi-Wan Kenobi, just like, I don't fucking need that. I'm never going to wear this skin. This sucks ass. Or all those money you spent on Hearthstone cards. Like, I haven't played Hearthstone in 7 years or something like that. Wow, what a waste it feels like.
So I was able to mostly avoid spending money in Hearthstone. I bought one of the expansions, which comes with some stuff, but that was it. I never bought individual packs. I am dealing with this struggle in Pokemon card game Pocket right now, where
oh, really?
I haven't spent any money in the game, but I'm like, there's an introduction price for $10 where you get all of this gold. You can open packs. You can only buy once for $10.
That's tantalizing.
But here's the thing. The problem isn't that $10. The problem is that it opens up the door. Once I do that once, who's to say I won't do it again?
Just one hit.
I'm remaining free of that. I think I got that bug mostly out of me during the initial popularity of Overwatch, because back then it was loot boxes only. You couldn't buy individual skins, and there was this one Diva skin that I wanted really bad. And I think I spent $20, maybe $30 on Overwatch skins, and then I got it on loot boxes, and I got it and I used it, and I was like, dude, why the fuck did I do that? Like, why? So
it's sobering.
I've mostly avoided now in Fortnite, which I don't even play Fortnite regularly, but when they release the One Piece skins, I'm in.
That's over.
I'm gonna buy them. I'm gonna play for 30 minutes to an hour, and then I'm gonna be on my merry way, and I will never think about it again until the next something irresistible, which would be pretty big for me. But yeah, it's crazy, dude. And I know we've talked about this on Sacred, but the pricing of skins in games now,
it's insane.
Specifically, Call of Duty is where I was exposed to it recently, where it's like, hey, if you want this one gun skin, you have to buy the pack that has the character, the gun skin, and it has a charm or something. $25. It's like, dude, it's the price of an entire game, multiple games potentially, depending on what you get. But people are into it. Brad, you've spent quite a bit in Fortnite, right? Like, I know that you have quite the collection the few times we've played.
Dude, I have nothing compared to people as well. But yeah, I've spent too much. You just get caught up, especially when you have someone like that you play with who is like gets really hyped about it and shit. I got influenced, man. I can't help it.
Was it Huber?
They fucking influenced me.
Did Huber do you in on that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I got influenced, man. And it fucking hurts, dude.
That's so funny.
But like, at least I'm not spending $250 on skins in League of Legends and stuff. That's like true. That.
You're not at the bottom of the barrel.
I got to look at the bright side. Yeah. People are spending $500 on skins in that game. It's crazy,
Jesus
man.
Christ.
Isn't there a mount right now in World of Warcraft that
That was $90. Yeah.
That is
$90.
fucking insane.
And guess what? It sold really well.
Oh my God.
Really well.
It's I don't understand. I'm so confused by a lot of that stuff. Cause like I think there's something, it's something in my brain where I really do not give a fuck what my character looks like in anything. Like I've seen skins that have like tempted me before in like Fortnite, like when they had the Dragon Ball skin and when they had like the Spider-Man skin. I remember, oh cool, yeah, you know. But I'm still rocking, like when I jump into Fortnite, I have like the first one, like with the guy who looks like a jet fighter. That's the one. I have no idea is that the name? I don't know. All I know
is a
that,
guy
like,
named Jonesy in Fortnite that is like one of the original ones. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about, but
I don't know. It's just like a guy in like almost like a helmet. But it's like it was a generic, you know, it's a generic skin. You know, I just
damn, really? You haven't crumbled even for Goku?
No, I thought I would. I remember logging into Fortnite specifically to do it, and then I just kind of didn't want to, because then my friends were like, "Hey, you want to play?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess." And then we just played, and I was like, "Okay, I'm set." And then I just logged off. I don't know. Maybe I have a skin. I feel like I must have bought at least one skin, but I'm having trouble remembering what it is, and that makes me kind of doubt that I bought anything. I don't know. I remember buying like map packs and stuff, and although that was annoying to do, I don't really regret that. You know, it's, I don't know. I'm trying to think of things that I spend money on that I don't regret in video games, and it really is just like there's definitely, I've bought games that I have not played, you know,
right,
that are just sitting there. But that's not really a regret so much as like, I think about it, it's like, I'm investing in the collection, whatever. Like if you know, I feel like playing it sometime later, I'll jump into it. That's not really a loss. And so for me, I think the only thing that I spend money on, like that I waste money on, that I don't care that it's a waste of money, is probably just the comfort of amenities. Like specifically, like I will have my air conditioning blaring the whole time. Like if in the summer, it's on all the time. I don't care if it needs to be. I know that there's a way to maximize the efficientness of it. I understand that, like, oh well, I could put it on. I could have it timed to go on at this time, and then, you know, maximize so I'm not spending money all the time. It's like, no, I'm fine. I don't care what that electric bill is. I need to not be sweating in my apartment. I need to not be freezing in my apartment, and I will spend whatever I need to make sure that that's the case. You know, I've never ever, even when I got like crazy electric bills, I remember being like, "Yep, it's the cost of doing business." You know, no regrets at all.
Yeah,
on that front.
I had a very I still have. My dad was a stickler about that. You know, like, oh,
me too.
We don't need to turn on the heat till November if we don't need to. You know, wear a jacket, get a blanket. You're fine. Stuff like that, where it's like, dude, I'm the same way, where I will blast the AC as much as specific. I'm cool with being cold in my house in the winter to some degree. You wear a jacket, whatever. You can't escape heat though. And you also, I think we've talked about this before, Chris, I can't sleep if I'm hot. Which growing up, we didn't have air conditioning in this house for a while. And I remember going and laying on the couch downstairs just for like a few degrees cooler to try to survive in some degree. But yeah, it's definitely, it's weird because, it is a waste of money. The other thing I was thinking is that what's interesting about wasting money, and this comes into the $90 WoW skin, is that it's so relative also to how much money you make, I guess. Because I was thinking about, those people that spend $90 on a WoW skin and are perfectly happy with it. But then you think about a lot of these free-to-play games that the monetization system simply exists not for the 99% of people that play the game, but for the 1% that will buy everything and spend tens of thousands of dollars on it. So it's weird how predatory certain things have been designed to be like, hey, this isn't worth money, but we know you'll buy it. Or at least 1% of you will.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a... It's weird. I don't know how I feel about it exactly, because there is the argument, and I think it's a compelling argument, to be honest, that like, well, they're the people kind of keeping a lot of the free content funded in some way. And it's just like, damn, that it is better than the old way of, like, I mentioned map packs a little while ago. It is better than having like, everybody has to pay, I don't know, $9 for this map. And if you don't pay it, you can't play it. I do think this is ultimately like a better way to... This is a better system, I think.
Mm-hmm. But
it does feel... Something about it feels like there's less integrity in it somehow. I don't know. It's a weird environment for sure.
Yeah. I think it comes down to, at least for me, when wasting money. Brad, you mentioned the gambling aspect, and I talked about One Piece cards. I just thought of when I was in Japan, there's a big thing. You guys have seen like the crane games, right? Where you can win figures or plushies and stuff like that. Well, I went in thinking, all right, I'm okay spending a little bit of money. It's probably going to be wasteful, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because I want the experience of winning something at a crane machine. So I picked out this Luffy figure that I decided I wanted to get. And dude, crane games, dangerous business where you're like, oh, I'll get it. It's working. Okay, if I do this and then it doesn't move, you're like, oh, well, that's $1 gone. That's $1 gone. And eventually it's the sunk cost fallacy where you're like, well, I've spent $40 on this figure. If I don't win it, then all that money's completely gone. So this last time I spent $70 at one crane game to get this figure. I was like, well, that wasn't worth it, especially because I found the same figure used in a store for $20 the next day. So that was painful.
Ooh.
But that's where you have to be careful. And I'm sure that's a big thing with gambling too. It's just like in gambling now, it's kind of freaky how with sports betting and different gambling on your phone now, how easily accessible it is. And it's like people get themselves in holes. It's just like normal gambling, of course, but now you can do it literally anytime, anywhere on your phone. But the last part of this question that I wanted to ask you guys about wasting money is the things you see other people waste their money on that grinds your gears. And so I have 3, but I'll list 2 here. The number one, I've learned this recently, is one of the biggest wastes of money that I see people doing, and I've done myself, DoorDash or Uber Eats. Food delivery, dude, it's insane. Back in August, Holly and I got a lot of DoorDash credit, which was very much appreciated and very helpful. There are times when getting fast food or whatever delivered, if you're sick, maybe not feeling well, it's fine. Maybe a little treat yourself too. But if you compare the price of, if you even just go and pick it up yourself versus getting it DoorDashed, the premium that you're spending is insane. And what I find crazy is there's people that are like, I DoorDash 3 or 4 times a week. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? I get the convenience, and that's the thing. Convenience is king in a lot of these money wasters. But so there's that. And the other thing is that Holly used to work at a coffee shop, and she was telling me about how there's people that would come in every day and buy just regular coffee every day. And to be fair, regular coffee is going to be the cheapest, like drip, $3 or $4. But that's one of those things. It's like, dude, coffee, if you make it yourself, which is very easy, you get yourself a cheap coffee maker, whatever, a French press, pennies per cup. Maybe not pennies, depending on what you buy, but it can be so cheap. But the convenience of every day going to a coffee shop, spending $3, not thinking about how that adds up. Now, to be fair, I understand that some people listening Might consider that a little rich, as I showed off my giant stacks of One Piece cards that sit in a box. So I get it. We all have our vices, but coffee for me is one of those things I'm like, dude, it's so easy. And yeah, there's things that you can get at a coffee shop you can't make at home. Maybe you don't have an espresso machine, you can't steam milk, lattes. That's fine. I get coffee out regularly in order to get those things, and that's fine. But getting your daily coffee out every day, a little bothersome to me. So, Chris, what about you? What do you see people spending money on that you can't believe?
I don't know if this is super common. It's not something that I see all the time, but I'll see it occasionally and it'll bother me. And it's really just because of the principle of it. It's cars. Like specifically, I really do not. I simply do not understand the logic in getting like a really, really, really nice car. Because to me, that thing's on the line constantly. You know, a car is a dangerous thing. Like we treat it very flippantly in the United States, because it's just like, oh, everybody drives, and you know, it's a very car centric kind of culture, especially in Los Angeles. But just I got this like insanely expensive car. I like souped it up. It's got a custom fucking all this and that, and then it crashes because of course, or that it gets or it'll get scratched, and it's like, oh my god, it's ruined. Somebody scratched my. It's a car. It's made to weather. Like it's transportation from point A to point B, and it's there to weather the elements for you. So I never understood car culture from that perspective. I appreciate driving a nice car. Driving it, you know, as like a one-off kind of thing. I appreciate, you know, build quality and all that stuff. But like the luxury car is one of the most confusing things ever to me. I really just don't understand it. And it's not something that I see really all that often. But when I do see it, it actually like physically bothers me. Like I can feel my chemicals changing in my body when I see like a really nice car, and it really is not envy at all. It really is just like, why? Because I know how much that is. That is so much fun. And granted, maybe for that person, it's like a drop in the bucket. And like, you know what? You're free to spend your money however you want, I guess. But I just look at it and I'm just like, man, I love my Corolla. You know what I mean? Like I authentically love my Toyota Corolla. I think it's awesome because it gets me from point A to point B. If something breaks in it, it's so quick and easy and cheap to replace because it's such a common car. It's like everything that I would want in something that needs to get me from point A to point B that also doesn't look like a piece of shit, you know?
Right.
And so I just the entire car culture thing, I just completely skipped by me. I don't get it. But certainly on the luxury end, it's fuck you doing.
Yeah. And the funny thing about not everyone who owns a nicer car, but certainly lots of people, and I'm sure we all have examples of someone who's done this, where someone gets a new car and you're like, how did you afford that? And then you hear about their car payment. It's like, dude, you're not like, you are going to be, you know, car poor from this car payment for what? And it's interesting. I've had some shit cars, like cars that I could buy. I'm trying to think. The one car I had, my dad gave me his 96 Subaru Impreza, and that was my first car, and it was 20 years old at that point. It didn't deserve to survive much longer. But after that, I think I got another Subaru for $4,000 or something, and it was old and crappy. And then eventually my current car was a gently used Subaru that was a year old. And it's funny because that tier of car, which I think it cost me, this was pre-COVID, so I think it was like $19,000, right? And to me, I'm like, this is the nicest car I have ever owned. I will never need a nicer car than this. I will drive this till the day it dies. And it's funny. Is it the status of having a nice car? Is it the features? I don't know. I'm kind of the same way where it's like this Subaru already has more than I need, and it is like a very modest overall price.
Yeah.
But
I think I love its status for sure.
Do you think? I mean, for sure, I think. But it's also just like I just don't know what else if it has air conditioning and heat. Like I don't know what else. I genuinely don't know what else a car needs. Bluetooth, I guess. In addition to that, but like my first car was I went right from a Corolla to another Corolla. Like I had a 2003 Corolla that was like a hand me down. Like my mom gave it to me basically. And I loved that thing, even though it didn't have an aux. It had like, I had a tape deck thing where I would put it would be this, like, it was a tape with like a wire on it.
Yeah, I had that too.
And I used that, and those things broke constantly. Like I went through like 8 of those things, but I don't know. I loved that car, and I probably would still be driving that car today if my mom didn't drive it into a lake.
Oh, like Michael Scott style.
Yeah,
dude, it was. I think it was like January. There was like black ice on the ground, and so my mom calls my dad. And she's like, "I'm sinking." My dad's like, "What?" And so they go. The whole town like had to gather together and rescue her. And I didn't know that this happened. This was my car officially, but I left it in New York because again, just more useful out there than it was in LA, where I could kind of walk around a little bit more reliably or get an Uber if I needed. And I didn't know what happened to my car until like 3 weeks later. Because I was like, "Hey, Mom, I'm coming home for, Thanksgiving or whatever." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, the car's gone." and I was like, "And I was like, what do you mean?" It's like, "Yeah, I crashed into the," she said, "I crashed into the ocean." And I was like, what do you are you okay? First of all, like, are you okay? It's like, "Yeah, it happened weeks ago." It's like, "You didn't tell me." It's very much it's so funny. I was watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, and this is exactly something that happens in that show, which is like, I didn't want to bother you. You crashed in a lake and you didn't want to bother. That's insane.
Yeah,
parents are crazy. But yeah, so now I have a 2018 Corolla, and I love it. It's exactly what I need. Like, I'm probably going to drive that thing until it literally physically explodes, which, God willing, no Leno befalls me. But, luxury cars are weird. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Brad, what about you?
Something that I see people spend money on that I don't understand. DoorDash is a really good one. I've known people that do it every single day, sometimes 2 times a day, which is like, just fucking go get it. Or make food at home or something. Like, come on, dude. And also, no offense to anyone out there, but cigarettes, I'm like, why are you doing this? Come on, what are you getting out of this? What are you doing? Like, what? You don't
They're
get
so
it. You're
expensive too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're expensive as shit. You just smell like shit. You get cancer. Your teeth get yellow. Just like, what are you doing, man? You don't get high or anything. I guess it could be relaxing for people and stuff like that. I'm sure there's like the nicotine or whatever, you get addicted to that. But it's just like, I don't know, man. If you're gonna like do that, at least like buy weed or something instead. I don't know.
Brad, we were supposed to smoke a cigarette together in New York, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I
know. That was your fault.
Yeah. Which, to be clear, I wouldn't consider myself a smoker. Like, I don't have, well, actually, I do have cigarettes on hand right now because I bought them in Japan and they're berry flavored, but they have been smoked. I've smoked 3 of them, I think, since 2 months ago. So it's very occasional for me.
Well,
but Brad,
it's not like you're smoking a pack a day or something like Lockmort or whatever.
Yeah, Locke. This is targeted at him.
Yeah, dude. He told us that story. He told. I actually don't remember it because I feel like I was, as I was hearing him tell this story, I feel like it was also leaving my mind at the same time because it was such an insane the amount that guy smoked. I have somehow never smoked a cigarette in my entire life.
Really? Wow, that's impressive.
I don't. There was something about it that looked gross, and I couldn't explain exactly why. I never liked the smell, I also dated somebody who smoked for a while, and that was like kind of probably the nail in the coffin for me, where I was like, man, this is not appealing at all.
Ash everywhere.
And it's just like there's a smell and like a vibe. Like, I don't know, man. It's pretty crazy. I've smoked cigars. I like a cigar every now and again. But I've never smoked a cigar. I've never smoked a cigarette. Smoking a cigarette in New York City, though, is kind of like that's if you're gonna smoke a cigarette, you should be standing on a New York City street, in the rain, miserably contemplating how you ended up.
You have like an internal Max Payne dialogue, going on.
Exactly. Yeah, that
there's
there's
an aesthetic
casino in Vegas. I'll allow it.
Oh, that's the best. What, dude? In a casino, top 5 place to smoke. Tier listed. S tier.
Yeah. There's got to be some awesome places in Japan, right, Dustin?
You would think, but Japan, while there's a lot more places you can smoke, they've really cracked down on it. So you'll outside at a train station or something, there's like these little boxes that they're like in there like cattle. All these Japanese people smoking in this small little box outside, which is nice because it's very respectful. People don't smoke where they're not supposed to. But probably a good place in Japan is in a pachinko parlor, I would assume, which would be a similar vibe to the casino smoke. But I've never been to a pachinko parlor. I'm intimidated to step in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wouldn't know what I was doing.
Go find the Metal Gear one.
Dude, the Metal Gear, there's an Evangelion one.
There's pachinko everything.
Yeah. You
can find it.
Yeah. No, smoke indoors is kind of a vibe, to be honest. I don't know. Like I not cigarettes necessarily, because there's like a very specific odor there, but like I remember there's this cigar lounge that me and my friend go to every now and again. And there is a vibe to that, man. There's something in that I dig.
It's not something you do regularly.
Special. No, it's very, very occasional.
Yeah.
But
when I was working at Ben's Speakeasy, which was a cigar bar, I could get half off cigars when I was working. And so I would start my shift at 4. So between 4 and 6, usually, often there would be no one there. Sometimes you get one customer. So I'm just sitting there with nothing to do. So I would smoke usually 2, sometimes 3, just because I was bored. And dude, smoking cigars at that pace, not healthy,
crazy.
Not good for you. And dude, we went to, so one of the providers, like cigar providers, offered this trip to Honduras where you could go check out the tobacco fields and stuff like that. So Ben and I and a couple others went on this trip. And while we were there, it was Rocky Patel. They had this giant wooden box. Like, oh, there's cigars in here. Anytime you want one, just grab one for free, included as part of the trip. Dude, I shit you not. I smoked 10 cigars in one day. 10 out of 10. Woke up the next day. I felt like I could barely breathe. And you know what I did? Got another cigar. I'm not a pussy. Keep
that is
going. I was also hungover because I had
crazy.
a ton of Jack and Coke. Actually, no, it was Jack and rum. Rum and Coke, dude. It was...
I was like, Jack and rum, holy shit.
No, yeah. Rum and Coke. Rum and Cokes, 10 cigars. I was living the best life, dude, on this trip. I would do it again.
This is in a single day, you said?
Oh, yeah, 10 cigars.
10 cigars in a single day is bewildering.
Oh, yeah.
How old are you?
Yeah, how old are you?
This was 5 or 6 years ago, so 25, maybe.
You can't do that anymore, Dustin.
Oh, no, dude.
You would physically not be able to.
I would not be able to. It's funny, dude. This could be a whole topic into itself, but like, it's funny now, even just being 31, the things I'm slowly realizing, like, can't do that anymore. Like, if I know that I'm going to be drinking even lightly, I have to think about it in advance. So like, okay, drink a glass of water before you go. Preferably a glass of water between every drink, but at least every 2 that night. Take Tums, drink more water, take ibuprofen in advance, and then still wake up with a light pain in your head. It's miserable.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not a seasoned drinker, I guess. That's what you kind of got to build up that muscle.
Right.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
I
anymore.
probably like I drink fairly socially. Like I don't I don't get drunk really, but I'll have a drink. But it never. I guess I've always operated on that level of paranoia though. Like ever since I started drinking, I was always like, all right, look, water, Pedialyte, maybe an IV. So for me, it's no real difference. But 10 cigars would kill me, I think. Like, because I think halfway through a single cigar, my stomach starts to kind of hurt. Like, I don't know. Like, I've heard that this is like a response that some people have, some people don't have it. I have it. So for me, the idea of like 10 whole cigars in a single day is that's honestly insane.
Dude, this kind of comes back to the topic in that it's not wasting money because
No.
the trip technically was free, but you have to pay to get there. I'm like, dude, I got to make this worth it. I probably smoked $300 worth of cigars when I was there. But yeah, sometimes you got to indulge in a little debauchery of 10 cigars. Sure. Nothing wrong with that. Boys, do you have any other things to think about or any things to think about? Any other money wasting thoughts or anything else, or should we?
I guess there is one point of have you? It's not necessarily wasting money, but do you have that kind of the one that got away type thing where like, oh, I should have bought that when I had the chance, even though like maybe at the time I thought like, do I need it? That would have been a waste of money. Like, do you guys have an example of like something like that? Because I do immediately. Like I remember I found this amazing leather jacket at like this thrift store, and I remember being like, oh, this is. And then I looked at the label and I found it's like, this is there's like some store that sold it, and I was like, okay, I know that store. It was a little tattered, but like I kind of like the look of it. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the actual store, see like get it new, so maybe it'll last me a little bit longer. Went to the store, they didn't make it anymore. Went back to the thrift shop, gone.
Oh,
and it was like, and to be fair, like for a thrift shop, it was pretty expensive. Still, it was like $100 at the thrift store, which is like it's not exactly cheap, you know what I mean? But it was a nice jacket, and I presumably it was like more expensive at the store. I would imagine, but I was like, you know what, whatever. If I'm gonna pay a premium anyway, I might as well just go get it like new. And they just didn't have it, and then I went back to the store and it was gone. I was like, damn it, it fit me perfect, which is like really difficult to find it. Like, but like I have such a weird like height. So like getting a jacket that fits exactly as it's supposed to is like pretty rare. And I think about that jacket still to this day. I'm like, damn. I tried it on and everything. I was like, I love the way this looks. And I should have just grabbed it. It was so dumb.
Yeah. The biggest one for me is thinking about the retro games that I could have bought even just in like 2019, before the giant boom happened. Of course, we see the photos online. Like I think Collins brought up, there's a picture of an end cap at Walmart with GameCubes for $49. Just thinking about like, man, if you just had the foresight to buy a few of those and keep them pristine or something like that. And actually, I mean, retro games too, there's a huge tinge of wasting money thinking about buying and getting those. I do that all the time. And it's like, dude, this copy of Ark the Lad for $200. Is that a good use of money? I mean, I guess theoretically you could argue that if you want to get like investment side of it and think about the value increasing, but that's only if you want to sell it later. And I don't want to do that. So oftentimes I've bought retro games and be like, I probably didn't need to do that. And Brad, I know you're getting into this now and experiencing, particularly with Pokemon games, the absurdity. And you've indulged.
Yes. Well, I haven't indulged in the crazy stuff yet.
Right.
I haven't gone beyond things, but it was definitely for me like retro games as well, Dustin. You bring up GameCube, that's a great example. I remember seeing Dreamcasts for like dirt cheap when they discontinued it. Man, I wish I just fucking bought like two of them or something and just kept one in a box or something. But yeah, Pokemon games. I remember seeing all those really expensive Pokemon games now. They're hundreds of dollars for just like $30, complete in box, brand new. Like Pokemon Emerald, I remember seeing just for cheap all the time and stuff like that. Black and White, all those expensive games. Crystal, and it's just like these are like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, these games. And I could have bought them. I just wasn't interested in Pokemon at all at the time. And I'm just ready to strangle myself when I was younger back then. Just like, you fucking idiot. Buy them.
You fool. Dude, the Dreamcast is so real. I remember seeing so many Dreamcasts stacked up at like a Circuit City.
Circuit City, yeah.
And I just remember being like, yo, that's so cheap. Even at the time, I was like a kid. I was like so young, and I was like, that's really cheap. My parents were like, no. And I'm like, yeah, all right, fair enough. I mean, it is their money ultimately, but I was just like, damn. Oh, man. They were just right there, and no one wanted them. And you just brought me back to a memory that I totally forgot. And now I'm like back in that place. I'm literally crying.
Dreamcast is the one that got away for everybody.
Yeah.
They never had it again. But yeah, big regrets on not getting a Dreamcast or something.
Yeah.
But at the time, we're just poor. We're kids, you know? Can't just buy everything very easily.
Luckily, Dreamcast now, I don't think it's too expensive of a system.
No, they're cheap. They're pretty cheap.
They're not too bad. Yeah. Games, though, well, depending on the game.
Yeah.
Of course. But
yeah, a lot of the games.
Yeah.
Hard, rare. They go out, sell out fast. People always want them. You know, like certain games just sell out. Like Pokemon games usually sell out really fast. Stuff like that. So it's hard to get a lot of those. But yeah,
right.
I wish I had the foresight. Definitely.
Well, boys, good discussion. I am beyond satisfied.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Beyond satisfied. Wow.
All right.
Holy moly.
Let's move on to our final topic. Brad, have you got something?
Oh, yeah. My topic this week is inspiration. I think inspiration is such an important thing for everything we do. Like all of us are probably here right now doing this because we were inspired by something. I thought of it because I was looking at my guitar back there and I was like, what? I was like, why did I start playing guitar again? And I was like, what is the bands or whatever that inspired me? And it's just like weird how everything in our life inspires us to do something. Something inspires you to go to the gym or to dress a certain way. Bunch of stuff like that. So I was kind of wondering, I'm like, okay, so I know all of us play music to some extent, at least what it's like. I'm just gonna ask, like, what inspired you to pick up an instrument or like a band or something like that, or a specific artist to start? Chris, let's start with you.
Oh man, well, my dad had this custom guitar. It was like it was like a Brazilian rosewood Spanish guitar that he got like in Brazil. Like it was like some guy was like making them himself and like selling them.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's been in our family for a long time. And I remember he just kind of would play it and he handed it off to me to try and teach me like what he knew. He wasn't like classically trained or even particularly adept at it. Like I don't think he knew chords and stuff. I think he would just noodle around or like he knew some specific songs that like maybe like his uncles knew or something. And so like that's how I started playing it. And so like I knew that I had a guitar. And I knew that I could play a little bit, at least like what my dad could play. I could play. And then I think it was probably around like Tony Hawk, Crazy Taxi, where I started hearing like some of the punk bands around that time, like Bad Religion, Offspring, Green Day, pretty big for me early on. And I remember being like, oh, I have that instrument, kind of. I could probably figure this out. And then I think I don't know if it was like anything in like, I think what got me to write music was probably like bands like Rise Against, I think. They were the ones that like really, it was like, oh, you can write stuff and it can be about something and that's cool. But to pick up the guitar, I think it was just like kind of like a right place, right time kind of thing, or just the right people in my life who happened to hand it off to me. I don't know if I would have naturally gravitated to it had I not already had some understanding of how the instrument worked from early childhood. You know what I mean? Like I think about that sometimes. Like, would I have bothered to pick up the guitar if I didn't already have one? Like, would I have spent the money to go out and like buy a guitar if I didn't already have one, or if I didn't know if I knew nothing about like how it worked? Like, would I have had the patience to learn it? I'm not sure. But yeah, I think I actually really wanted to do drums, but I was so bad at it. I'm so bad at drums. It's insane. I can't do it. It's the foot. My foot has no dexterity in it. So like I cannot. It's useless. It sucks. But
damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I could be a drummer either. That seems just too crazy to me. You're doing like 3 different things or 4 different things at once.
Yeah.
You have to be like an octopus to do that. No, I can't do that. I don't think I can do it. What about you, Dustin?
I think for me, specifically with music, my dad growing up was in lots of bands. My dad's a drummer. And so what's been odd about him for me growing up is that he was he was a local scene, which they didn't use that word then, but like a scene legend of like Butler and Pittsburgh hardcore and metal music. He was playing in bands before I was born, and then in my early years, of course. And so I had spent like a lot of weekends and stuff seeing my dad perform at local shows and being around, getting the gear ready, them setting up. Even went on, I guess they weren't really tours, but like I went on a trip with them once to, I think it was Buffalo, New York, maybe, and seeing him perform there. And it's so funny. Mentioning my dad being a local legend is that he's modest about it, but he's always brought up things that I found unbelievable, and I'd always kind of laugh him off. For example, Brad, you know the band Zayo.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I've told you this, but for the audience, Zayo is a local like death metal type band here in the Pittsburgh area, legendary band. And my dad always talked about, he's like, oh yeah, I booked them at this show at the Days Inn in Butler or at the Meridian Vets Club or whatever. And I believe that, of course, but he's like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to so-and-so from Zayo in a long time or whatever. I'm like, they don't remember you, bro. Like, he always acts like you know them, but I don't really know about that. And then when I was in 11th grade, I think it was 11th or 12th grade, Zayo was playing in Pittsburgh, and they're not as active anymore, but we went there and we walked into kind of like where the ticket front area is. And there's this guy talking about, like, he's talking to this other guy about, oh yeah, like back in the day, we used to do this with all these shows, whatever. And the guy sees my dad out of the corner of his eye and he's like, oh yeah, and it's all because of this guy. And he points to my dad. And this was the bass player of Zayo. And I was like, you were right. Like, he definitely like, and so seeing him, long story short, seeing him play music and stuff was always a big inspiration. And he used to take me to shows all the time. And so I kind of dabbled in trying to play guitar as early as 2nd grade, but I never had any dedication to it. I was like, this is hard. I didn't have really formal lessons, which I think is part of the problem too, is that I was kind of just like noodling around. I think my uncle showed me some things here and there, but it wasn't until I was in junior high where some of my friends were getting into playing bands. And I was like, okay, I don't know. I don't feel like it was a competitive spirit, but I think it was this motivation. I was like, well, if they can do it, why can't I figure this out? And so I started playing guitar. Again, didn't have any lessons, which was, looking back, so stupid, because I only learned from teaching myself, and probably learned terribly, which is why I never ended up being a good guitar player. But that was when I started playing in bands, and I realized I loved the live performance aspect of it. And it wasn't necessarily even like a showing off, like, oh, look, my band could play a show, but there's something about the synergy, to use a really lame word, of performing live with 4 of your other best friends, even if it's a small audience and even if your music totally sucks, that was always the most fun part of it. And so I can't really point to a specific band or anything like that because we were all super obsessed with music and hardcore bands and stuff like that. So that was kind of how it happened. It's funny though, because I guess I've lost the inspiration now because I haven't played guitar in a few years now. So it's kind of a lost inspiration at this point.
Yeah. I feel like it can come and go kind of in waves because that's what happens to me. Sometimes I'll get into it for like a couple months, then I'll just not play for like a year or something like that. And we're like, well, I just lost everything I learned. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Now I got to relearn it all.
It is an ebb and flow kind of thing.
Yeah, it is.
With music, especially if you do like other things, you know what I mean? Like if your main job or if your main thing is music and that's how you put food on the table, that's like your life. It's probably not going to ebb and flow in the same way, but for us, where I think all of us do a lot of different things, you know, it can only take up so much of our time, or brain space in any given. It's like I find myself like getting in like waves of like, okay, I'll have like a month where I'm like really really dedicated, and then I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that, and then like it just kind of I don't. By the time I'm done doing all that stuff, by the end of the day, do I want to noodle around on the guitar? Probably not. You know, I just want to relax and play a video game or like watch a movie I haven't seen, or do any number of other things. But I want to go back to like, I want to figure out, because I'm like Dustin, where like I learned probably pretty terribly. Like I taught myself kind of everything, and I think I had one music theory class in like 7th grade, but I none of it. None of it got to me. Like it was just complete. Like I don't know if it was the way that it was taught or like maybe I just wasn't. Because that was one of those things where it's like I know that it's not because I didn't care. You know how there are certain classes where like you're not absorbing anything, but it's because you don't give a shit, or it's just like this isn't your preferred subject. Like I don't care about. I don't really give a shit about, you know, the history of London in the 17. I could give a fuck. I could give a fuck about that. But music theory, I was like I really wanted to learn, and for whatever reason, I absorbed nothing from that class. But I do want to get back into like learning music theory proper, because I do think I know enough to the point where that I know that that's the only guardrail in front of me, or not the only guardrail. I know that that's the only barrier in front of me. Is that like, damn, I know every single chord possible. I understand what sounds good next to each other, but I don't know how to figure that out without playing it first. You know, like I can't just sit there and write a chord progression on paper and understand like, oh, that's going to work in this way, or the 1-4-5-1 thing. Like I don't really even as I'm saying that, I'm like, I don't really know what that means. I just know that it's important. And so it's just like, man, I do want to like sit and just spend like a week, 2 weeks really hammering that out, because I know it somewhere. Yeah. I know it's sitting there in the back of my head, but I got to coax it out, I think.
Music for me a lot is just like kind of figuring out how to unlock something in your mind where you're like, oh, now it makes like you have those aha moments when you're kind of playing or something like let's say you're learning a scale or something like that, and you like finally get it down. You're like, oh, I get why this kind of goes in this pattern or whatever, like the C shape or something like that. Like when stuff unlocks like that for me is the best. I love that kind of stuff, but sometimes it just like doesn't come to me, and I'm just like, why can't I figure this out? But it is for me kind of like a repetition thing, just doing it over and over and over and just driving it insane to my brain. That's how I learn it. But I think music theory would be really cool too, Chris. I was interested in it a while as well, and I knew like some, you know, you're in this key or whatever. I could see like on the circle chart of notes or whatever, like what it would go in, like what the next note would be and what would go good together. But it's like I forgot like all that kind of stuff now. It's been so long,
dude. Exactly. It's so frustrating. Like I spent like 3 days, because it's also just finding a good teacher too. Like you're finding a good way to have it explained to you, because it is kind of confusing. It's like learning a new language. And so I found this one video where the way this dude was explaining it and demonstrating, I was like, this is clicking in such a perfect way. And I figured out, like, within like a day or two, I was like, it's like, okay, I was like writing things down on like a piece of paper and being like, and then playing them, like reading off the paper and be like, oh, this sounds, I know how to make new sounding progressions now. This is sick. And then because I learned how to do it so quick, I was like, I'll come back to this whenever. Because it was easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if this happens to you guys or if you experience this, but there are some words that I still to this day probably can't spell.
Oh yeah.
On first try, just because I know that if I spell it wrong, Google or Microsoft Word or Google Documents will tell me, you know, and then I'll just right click correct, and then it'll correct it. So I feel like there's an element of that where it's just like I know that at any moment I can go and just learn this thing. And so because I know that it's just sitting there, there's no urgency, I guess.
Yeah.
Or there's no like there's no demand or inspiration to really like seek it out, because it's not like there's no like deadline. There's I don't know.
I think it's like, well, with me, I learned best kind of like trial by fire, where it's like,
me too.
You have to learn. You have to. Like, that's where you're at. And you're like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna really learn. But like when it's like you're saying, Chris, just got autocorrect. It's no big deal. Whatever. It'll figure it out. I got Grammarly. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Dude, the word license trips me up every single time.
Yeah.
License trips me
words. Up. I don't know, man. There's always weird stuff like that. Just like people have different like quirks on that kind of thing. Just some things don't work, or it's hard to like learn. I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, I like your thing about like finding the right teacher for you, because I think that's so important to get better at certain things. Because everyone, people learn in different ways, I guess, and just finding like that right teacher that can kind of speak to you is so important. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I guess piggybacking off of this, since we are kind of in the same, we're in a very not musical field right now. We're in a very specific field. What was the inspiration to jump into this for you guys?
I don't know. I can talk about how I got. Oh, go ahead, Dustin.
I was gonna say, if you're thinking, I can go first if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
For me, so to get into video games, I guess. So I had dabbled in making YouTube videos in junior high about video games and always found it cool that people were making videos. And it wasn't even, because back then that was 2007. So yeah, there were some people that had careers, but not anywhere near like they have today.
No.
And so I initially was really into that, but then kind of gave it up because I was more into the idea of doing actual movie making, filmmaking, whatever. And then when I was in college, is when I first started to really get into podcasts. I knew about podcasts before that, but as cringy as it is true that listening to Beyond and listening to Colin on Beyond, Colin and Greg really at that time was like probably the inspiration for trying to do this. Cause it's like, whoa, there's these dudes that work at a video game website and they're able to talk about video games and that's their career. That sounds really fun. I would like to do that. And through that, there was other podcasts I discovered, of course, too. And Brad, you know that I was an avid listener of Easy Allies. And so that's when it kind of became, the inspiration to try to do this. Now, it's tough just because it's so, there's so much luck involved with being able to get into it. But it's crazy to think about, too, just because it's a field that doesn't even really feel like it should exist in some ways, where you try to tell someone that's not in the space, it's like, oh yeah, I commentate about video games. And they're like, oh, like a streamer. It's like, no, it's mainly just talking about news. I actually had this conversation with my grandparents just a few weeks ago where they were like, really, they've known what I've done for a while, but they haven't really gotten to the nitty gritty about it. And they're like, so you prepare to record? I'm like, yes. There's a lot of reading and stuff, but yeah, I guess that's how I got inspired to do this. Chris, I'm really curious. I know you asked the question, and I know that you were into making videos from a young age, but what was it specifically about YouTube? Like, who was the YouTuber that made you say, like, oh, or was there one at all?
Man, back then, it really wasn't anybody. It was because I was already making things before YouTube for no reason. Like I would make things just to make them. And I'm not even really sure why. Like I remember actually fucking around with the iToy specifically on PS2.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you could kind of, there was like an option. I don't remember exactly like what it was called or like exactly how it worked, but there was a way to make really rudimentary videos on iToy. On PS2 and like save them to a memory card, and it was like super really it was really 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 bare bones, and like you couldn't really edit, and I remember kind of fucking around with it where it's like, okay, I can't edit, but I can set the time to record, and if I just plan for the cut to happen here and then plan for it to start recording here, that would like act as like a cut. So I was fucking around with editing for like a really really for a while before YouTube was like a thing in anybody's anybody that I knew their interest. But I think when YouTube came out and when I realized like, oh, there's a platform where you could just post stuff, that's crazy. I just took what I was doing and then just put it up there. I think over time I got inspired by certain people. Like definitely AVGN was huge.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like there's line deliveries from that guy that like still to this day, like what were they thinking? Like
Yeah.
it's always like it's very instrumental, and like people like, and then early machinima also. That was kind of a big deal. Like when I found out that people were like making like movies and shows in video games, I was like, that is sick. I was like super drawn to that. But I wouldn't say that there was like an initial person. I think there are people that influenced style over the years. I think like JonTron is one of those people who like really really influenced the way that I write stuff, specifically on the channel. But like YouTube was really just, I was already doing that. Like I have CDs. God, I hope that those don't exist anymore. But like I have like like DVDs or CDs where like I had like a bunch of like sketches that I made in like Windows Movie Maker, like when I was like 9 or 8 or 10 or something like that. And I printed them out on CDs, and I would make like fake DVD cases for them. Like, oh, this is the show. This is like season 1 of the show, and it was like super cringe and dumb. I would never in a million years want to see any of those things again. I would burn those in a heartbeat. But so I was already doing it back then. I guess Andy Milonakis probably like a weird dude, probably a weird pull, sure. Because I remember he was one of the first people where I was like, this is on TV, I could do this. You know, like it was like it somehow made television feel like not impossible. And so yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a mix of things, but those are the main ones that I can think of as far as like influences. Not necessarily inspirations to start, but inspirations to continue.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Brad?
Well, getting into it, it's weird. I guess maybe it would be kind of like Colin and Greg as well, Dustin, around that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of like, was that the first podcast I listened to? Like an IGN one? I don't really know. Around the PS3 era? I'm not really sure when I started getting into that, but learning about like that this field exists, I guess, even like these people just talking about games. Like I remember magazines, of course, and stuff like that, but getting into like sites and whatever, all that kind of stuff, I didn't really get into until later, I would think. But I never really thought I could do it for some reason, right? It didn't even cross my mind to like, I should try to do that kind of stuff. You guys know I was a hairstylist for years before this. And it wasn't until like E3 time, I remember I was on like in the back with like a bunch of the girls that I worked with. And I'm just like getting hyped up about games. And I was like, oh, yes, like looking up this kind of stuff. And I'd be like, oh, check this out. And they'd be like, what is that? They just like didn't know. I'm like talking to people who like didn't know, didn't care, like not being rude about it or anything. They just didn't really care or anything like that. Or I was just like, man, I need to like talk to people or like get into this kind of space. And at the time, my friend, Mike Huber, who many listeners know, was starting to work at Game Trailers at the time. So I just kind of reached out to them and made Mike bug Brandon Jones, the owner of Game Trailers at the time, to get me a job. And after months, finally nailed it. So I don't know. It was kind of like a weird scenario how I ended up in here. It feels like, how did I do this kind of thing like that? It's like, I don't really understand how it happened, but maybe you guys can kind of relate to that as well. You're just like, I don't know how we ended up here, but we did somehow. So I think those are kind of inspiring me. But like even like JonTron, I remember he had some funny videos back in the day as well, Chris. I always thought that stuff was interesting. And of course, AVG. And I feel like any gamer person on YouTube has knows AVGN to some extent and has like watched some stuff and been inspired by it in some way just because he's like that guy, dude, from YouTube back in the day. He's the dude.
Dude, I saw him in person at Too Many Games. I was meeting up with a friend at a hotel bar, and apparently it was the hotel that all of the main people from Too Many Games stay at. And I saw him there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was so funny just because I was like, I am starstruck by this totally normal dude that I was like, man, I can't believe that's him. That's the guy from when I was in junior high, and I would binge all of his videos, and he's there.
Pooping
I could
on
not talk
NES
to him.
games.
Dude, there's a fundamentally like non-zero chance that he is like a really key figure in like the evolution of the internet. Like, like he is so instrumental in ways that I don't even think he properly understands. Because he made like those videos were not just it wasn't just like some dude talking over like I feel like now we've kind of gotten into this, and granted this is the podcast space too to an extent, but like podcasts are like supposed to be this way. But even like video format, like a lot of videos I see now are just it's literally just a guy in front of a webcam talking, and it's the same shot the entire time, and it's not really thought out, it's not written, it's not particularly edited. I see it a lot. And back in like 2004, this dude was like set up the camera for a new shot, do some fucking weird practical effect. It was awesome. It was like it was so inspiring and so cool. Like I think about him beating up Bugs Bunny probably at least once a week, because there's a shot that I love where it's like it's Bugs Bunny and he has his hands up. And he's doing that like disturbed, like his walk up to the camera is one of the funniest. It is so simple and stupid that like I probably like, as I'm thinking about it, I probably would also be starstruck seeing this man.
Yeah,
like, I'd be like, yo, what? This dude's like mythical.
Yeah.
In some way.
My one friend there was like, you should just go up, say hi to him. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like in no way. He's like, you might know who you are from Sacred. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I cannot. I mean, I'm sure I could meet him. Like, I don't know. I feel so weird, like going up and talking to people that I guess would be inspiring. That's kind of an interesting angle. Is that dude? The first time I met Colin, I was very nervous. And honestly, actually, the first time I met Brad too, I was very nervous, just because it's like, oh, these. And it's funny now being on the other side of that, because if someone's nervous to meet us, I'm like, why?
Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah, it is funny because I totally get that. Like, because I would be so nervous to like. I remember because John was one of those people for me before I like got to know him, and then like I remember being at his wedding and being like, what the fuck. What the fuck happened? This is wild. That this is a real scenario. And then over time, you're just like, yeah, wait, what do you mean? Of course, right. Everybody's just a normal person, but it doesn't feel that way sometimes. Like sometimes it does feel like I feel like for him especially, man. Like I don't know, because I was only like kind of like loosely familiar with Colin. Like I remember his name from the Mass Effect debacle when that was a whole controversy, and I remember being like, I remember even back in the day being like, I kind of agree with, I don't know what people are talking about really.
Yeah.
And so meeting him and putting that together, like as I met him, was really funny because I was just like, oh, I remember this. I remember this fella.
That reminds me, Chris, of the first time I met you at Colin's apartment, and that was probably, it's a very similar thing to probably how you felt at JonTron's wedding, where I was sitting, I'm like, I'm in Colin's apartment. I work for him. Chris Raygun is here.
Mhm.
Colin's smoking weed, and we're just hanging out. Like, this is the strangest thing that I've ever done.
And now it's not even remotely.
And now,
strange.
yeah, it's like whatever.
Yeah, there's a surreality to it. Because it's taking something that is fake. I think that's what it is ultimately, is
Right.
that like where surrealism hits is because something that has been fake the whole time is now suddenly real. And so that is what is weird about it. Like going suit shopping for JonTron's wedding with John and like all these animators that I like, Psychic Pebbles and those people. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I remember feeling like I do not belong in this room at all. And then it just fades and it just kind of becomes normal. And then you forget what it's like to be on the other side of that, especially in relation to you. You can't even fathom that feeling being towards yourself. It really is impossible, I think. But it's real. Like people, it's so funny when people like when we do the live shows and people are so nervous because I see it and I totally get it.
Yeah.
Like I totally get, I can't fathom it being directed to me, but I get it. I know exactly what this experience is like. And it's why I avoid it at every opportunity. Like I would never approach somebody. Like if like my favorite singer or like one of my favorite musical artists was at a bar and I was in the same bar, I don't know if I would go up. Because I would rather they have no memory at all of me as opposed to like one awkward one.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think, Chris, you and I are alike in that we're able to turn on a level of confidence to perform, whether it's on a video or a podcast or whatever. But I don't want to speak for you. I'm deeply self-conscious. So the thought of me going up to the angry video game nerd, James Rolfe, and introducing myself, there is such a risk factor of what you just said. It's like, is he going to think I'm a moron? Am I going to say something stupid? Is he going to be annoyed because he's had this exact same interaction 10 million times?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think it's good. And there's also a possibility now where there are people that I've met that the problem isn't with me. It's actually realizing that they're not who you thought they were.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's happened to me too, where even just in the first interaction, you're like, oh, you're kind of a dickhead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that can happen too.
I wonder how, because I totally get that, and I that worries me also, like the never meet your heroes type thing. But a lot of people that I've met that I've known of before have been pretty cool, and so it's just like is that a? And then there's also just the feeling of, is that inherently kind of insane to do in the first place? Like to put somebody on a pedestal at all, to where finding out that they're just a real person is disappointing. You know what I mean? Even that sounds insane if you break it down. It's like, of course they're not going to be like amazing, like, or like that they're not. Of course, these people that you watch on video all the time aren't going to be like, you know, pillars of, perfection, where like, oh, everything that they do is going to be perfect or interesting, or like I bet there are moments where Hideo Kojima is the most boring fucking person alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where he just like is just not in the mood to have a conversation. He's like, I'm tired. I got like a fucking headache or whatever. Like I've definitely been in those situations meeting fans, and I always feel bad about it. Where like I'll be walking down the street and I have like a fucking splitting headache, and I'm just totally not into anything. And they'll say hi, and I'll like strike up a conversation, and I'm trying to like be good about it, but like I also cannot hide that I'm just like in a miserable physical state. And I wonder how that might come across. And that's how now I'm nervous. meeting a fan. And so I guess it kind of goes both ways. There's always like this like weird cyclical nature to it where it's just kind of like, okay, I'm comfortable and I'm like totally confident, and now I'm just like, I'm not in the space to meet anybody. Or like it's I'm wearing sweatpants at a Ralph's because I'm picking up up like ingredients for dinner, and then like, hey Chris, and I'm like, oh great, I look like shit right now.
Well, I think it says a lot to your character, Chris, because I've seen you. It's funny that when we've been together at different events, I always joke that I'm like, Chris is the only one who's actually partially famous of our group. But I've seen you many times go above and beyond for people, like particularly in New York, like that guy that stopped us when we were walking somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, Chris is the actual,
like, to the Macy's or something. I think
it was at night because he pointed you out and started talking to you, and we're like, is this guy like a Last Stand listener, or is he a Chris listener? And then you're like, oh, just go on ahead.
No, that was a date. That was going to Macy's. I remember.
I thought it was dark out though. Maybe not.
I don't remember.
It was rainy.
I feel like I remember it being at night, but like my memory is famously terrible.
Well, maybe it fucking happened twice, Chris. You popular bitch.
I remember specifically having the feeling of like in that moment it was very weird because I was with you guys, and so I was with a group of people who also would be recognized. Normally I can tell. You know what I mean? Or normally it's like, oh, if I'm by myself, I know generally what they recognize me from because most sacred people I feel like listen to the show.
Right.
And so I rarely get recognized physically from Sacred. It's usually like sometimes I do. But in that situation, like they approached the group and I was like, oh, are they stopping all of us or just me? Like I wasn't sure. And then I thought like, is that an egotistical thing to think in the first place? And so my mind's racing already. But yeah, I mean, I try to be as affable and as nice to people as possible because I would want that in return. And also it doesn't bother me. I like talking to the people who are instrumental in keeping us where we are, you know, like I value that. It's not lost on me. And so like, even if it's like slightly inconvenient, like I've sat on street corners having conversations with people for like 20 minutes before, you know, cause it's just like, to me, it's just like, that's really the least that I could do, I think. Cause we're all, I know the word privilege is kind of like, but I do think we live privileged existences, and that's awesome, and I appreciate it immensely. And so but sometimes I am just like in the worst possible place to be talking to someone, and I always feel bad about that. Like there's a point in New York where I was having a splitting headache, and I was like hungover, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to go home. And then some guy's like, Chris, and I'm like, oh no, I'm about to throw up probably. And so I'm like, yeah, man. Oh man. And I had like a 10-minute conversation. And then I was like, all right, I'm off. And then I threw up on the train tracks.
Hell yeah.
I wonder if that guy remembers that, or if he saw it. He might have left by that point, but
at least like people are always cool about that stuff when you got to leave. Like, have you guys ever ran into someone who's like an annoying fan, I guess, or like an angry fan?
Only once. And it wasn't really annoying so much as it was weird. Like somebody stopped me on my way walking. This is when I lived in Glendale. This is years ago. And I was walking from the Americana back home, which was like kind of like a 20-minute walk. And it was like summer. So it was hot. But I was walking, and then these guys passed me. I was like, hey, Chris. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up? And they were like, oh, I loved your video, man. I was like, oh, thanks. And then they like took their phone out and snapped a picture. But like, just they tried to like, it was weird. It was like they didn't ask first off, and then they also like tried to hide that that's what they were. It was weird. It was like they tried to take it. It was like they tried to sneakily take a picture, but it's like, what am I, stupid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like oh, I'm just holding. Oh yeah, hey man, whoa, good to see you. Like it's like the most obvious. Like you're not being clever, or like when you have like the phone in the shirt pocket like this. It's like, come on, like. But that was only one instance that I had that, and even that wasn't. I think they were just kind of like
they're probably awkward.
Yeah, they were awkward. I don't think they knew how to ask, or that maybe they thought I would, I don't know, shoot them in cold blood in the street if they if they ask for a photo, as I am one to do. But yeah, I don't know.
I've been lucky to not. I don't really think I've had any bad interactions. I've had plenty of awkward ones, but that's fine. I can be awkward as well, so that's cool. But I mean, there was that really, really drunk guy after Sacred 200, and he really didn't do anything wrong. He was just very, very drunk. Called me the C word, not in a mean way, but in a way that was like, what? Like, what are you doing? My dad was about ready to take this guy out because I don't know if he was like fully observing the situation, but I think one time at an event, someone did sneakily take a picture of me, which it's one of those things that you're not going to be like, hey, like, don't do that. But also it's like you could, it kind of is just awkward. It's just like,
yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to even just take a picture of me without you, I guess it's a little strange, but I don't care.
Look, to me, I think it's weird etiquette to do that, but at the same time, it's like I don't not understand where the impetus is. Like if you're at a bar or something, and you're talking to somebody, it's like, yo, fucking this celebrity's here, look, and just to prove it, it's like, okay, I get it, but like when it's like a one-on-one interaction on the street, like that's what was weird about it to me. It's just like, dude, just ask. Weird. Like that was, man. Yeah, just ask. It's fine. Although, like you said, Dustin, like I'm sure we're awkward too. Like on many occasions. So
yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I remember when I was at Game Trailers working there. I remember I was like in the back at something. Maybe it was like the Sony press area or something like that. And I remember all the kind of funny guys were there, and I talked to like most of them. And Colin was there too, but Colin gave me this weird vibe where I was like, I shouldn't talk to him. I should just let that be. And I was 100% right, because he never wants to be bothered on that kind of stuff. Even at like they had a meet and greet, I remember, and I met I was with Brandon Jones at the time, and you guys remember Inside Gaming or whatever before they were Funhouse, that guy Adam.
Oh yeah.
I met him, and he was just he gave me a really weird vibe, and he's kind of like a dick, like dismissive. And I was like, I don't like this guy. And I was right. He came out as like a weirdo later on. And I was like, I knew it, dude. I knew you were fucking weird. I just sniffed it.
That was probably the first big thing that like, where I was like, oh man, that was the first time I was disappointed, because I loved, dude, Inside Gaming. Inside Gaming.
I worked with Elise, which was James's wife.
Yeah, Elise. Yeah, James and Elise are hilarious.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And Bruce is awesome. That crew was just great. Like I would put them as another point of like inspiration too. Where I was just like, I loved what they did. Where they had like a perfect improv kind of Mystery Science Theater, but for video games kind of thing going. That was like that was a magic formula if I ever saw one. I was like, damn, they were really good. I don't know if they still do. I think they probably expanded at this point, right? Or they're gone.
Oh no, like, Funhouse isn't. I don't think Funhouse is around anymore.
Oh yeah, that's a shame.
Because my old coworker Don, who I worked with at Game Trailers and Easy Allies, he also worked at Funhouse for a while. So I don't think they're around anymore.
Dude, the old Inside Gaming, it's really fucking good. They used to do these like those demo disc. Used to do demo disc videos that would kill me. But yeah, actually, that's a great example. Actually, because I remember I saw James and Elise at a party once, and I was too afraid to go. I was too afraid.
Oh, really?
I was like, I can't do it because I think they are so funny. Like specifically, like
those Elise. I loved working with her. She was awesome.
They are so funny that I was just like to the point where I actually probably almost seemed rude. Like, because I was just like kind of like going out of my way to like avoid them in some way. But like, I couldn't do it. I don't know. So I guess I do still have, there's some of those people where like, I'm just too nervous to say hi. So like, I guess we're all hypocrites, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we're saying, definitely. Oh, just say hi to us. It's no big deal. And then meanwhile, I'm like slinking away at a party where it's like,
well, I guess
everybody knows each other.
We know ourselves. Right. And I know that everyone at Last Stand, if someone approached them and wanted to talk to them, they'd be totally cool about it. But again, it's those few interactions where I have gone out of my way and talked to somebody where they seemed annoyed by it, that I was like, dude, I'm gonna have to just kill myself now, because they're not who I thought they were, and I annoyed them, and now I want to die.
That says more about them, though, I think.
Right.
That's
true.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm satisfied though. That topic of inspiration, cool to learn about some of our lore. I should say, I guess, a little backstory, a little bit of lore about us. Good stuff.
Well, thanks for joining me, you guys. I know. Oh, everybody's giving. Oh, it's only 2.5. It's only 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'm so disappointed. I wanted 8 hours of Constellation, and whatever. Get over it.
Yeah, we just do what feels natural, right? We're not going to artificially extend something.
That's my feeling. It's just like, I don't know. Do you want artificially extended 8-hour conversations, or would you like them to resolve as reasonably? I feel like 2 hours is a perfect amount of time, in my opinion. But the audience differs. Fair enough.
I know.
They're accustomed to sacred, which I think we're capping out at around 12,000 hours per episode.
Yeah, you guys go over 4 hours like every episode, don't you?
It's normal.
Usually.
Usual, yeah.
Dude, we've got a big week. Because anytime that we record, so like Game Awards, we're going to record, I assume, we haven't talked about it, but we're going to record everything, and then the Game Awards will happen, and then we'll go back and record about the Game Awards. Those are always the big ones.
Yeah.
It's
that's going to be like 5 hours.
Going to be absurd. So we got to, dude, so this episode is going to come out during Christmas break. So we are away right now, but this week for us, actively busy ass week. I'm recording. If I do my mailbag, I'll record 5 times in 4 days. So
damn,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. 2 podcasts to do tomorrow, or host tomorrow. That's my
2 in 1 day.
2 in 1 day. Yeah,
nice.
I have punching up and summon sign with you. After.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
That's right.
Man, it's a busy time. Well, we hope you're all having a good holiday out there, a good break, enjoying your time off, or if you're, I don't know, if you're an indentured servant, I guess enjoy the holiday themed work. Well, let's go around the horn and say goodbye. Thank you guys for showing up and joining me today. Dustin, say bye to you.
Goodbye. What am I going to do today? I've been playing Metaphor, but I played so much over the weekend because I'm thinking about the spoiler cast. I think I burnt myself out where I was playing last night and I was like, dude, I can't do this. So I'm going to play a different game to talk about on that Summon Sign episode tomorrow.
Yes.
And hopefully get some groceries because I can't deal with another struggle meal. I'm going to be eating like raw pasta tonight if I don't do something about this situation with food. So
raw pasta.
Just it's like, no, I don't even have the water to boil it.
I couldn't afford the water. Dude, I knew people I know people who snack on raw pasta. They like eat like raw macaroni. And I'm just like, what the I never knew that was a thing.
I didn't know that. That's weird.
I've eaten a piece of raw, macaroni or a noodle or something, but it's not something. It's just kind of a curiosity in the moment, and then you're like, "Oh, that sucked."
Exactly.
I'm never going to do that again.
I know people who do it on purpose, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see. But yeah, so you're still on Metaphor, huh?
I'm still on Metaphor. Well, all I'm going to say is, I don't think this is a spoiler. I really don't, because this is the case with Persona games. They're like, here it is. This is the ending. Nope. And then it's like, here's another 10 hours. And they're like, this is the ending. Nope. And it just keeps going and going.
But it's good.
It's good. It's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
I played so much over the weekend that I'm at the point now where I think, I don't know what happened. I think I need to grind again because the battles are very, very tough. And so it's annoying where it's like I'm burnt out and I need to do boring stuff. So
get ready for that final boss, Dustin. Difficulty spike.
Get
ready.
Put it on story mode. Just end it. Maybe. I don't know. I've done that before with Persona games.
Sure.
Yeah, that's definitely. I see things from that game all the time, and I'm like, this looks cool, but I can just tell it's not. I'm gonna get filtered by that game immediately the second I try to play it. So
Hey, just finish that Rebirth playthrough, all right?
Yeah. Well, I got interrupted by Indiana Jones.
I know.
Which,
your Rebirth playthrough is all over the place. It's going to take like 2 years, but it's all right.
The PS6 will be out by the time I finish Rebirth.
Yeah.
But I'm loving Indiana Jones so far. I like it so much more than I thought I would. And it actually bothers me. Like, because I wasn't. This? Yeah, because I rewatched all the movies in preparation for it, and I saw this one. I'm not gonna name it. I saw a review where it was just like, yeah, it's clearly the guy knows nothing about the property at all, and he's like reviewing it, and it's just like, ugh. I don't know if this makes a lot of sense, man. But Temple of Doom's the best, by the way. Say goodbye to Doom.
Yeah.
I love Temple of Doom. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brad.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go eat lunch and go to the gym afterwards. Then tonight, I got to put together those 2 podcasts, but I'm going to play Indiana Jones. I haven't played it yet, so I'm very stoked because I love those original movies. So I am ready. Yeah? Temple of Doom is great.
Dude, yeah. I think if you like those movies, I think you'll like it's surprisingly good. It's a lot of people have said Dishonored, and I see that. But for me, it's like it's a little bit of Dishonored, a little bit of Hitman. It's really fucking cool. Like,
all that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's dope.
That's all good.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. We're gonna get the fuck out of here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting us. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Go on over there. Get all these shows, bunch of other stuff, and I'm gonna kill you.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.